What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So this video is one that I was not sure whether I'd ever get around to making, because what I'm about to talk about, a lot of people will not have access to. Thankfully, I was able to get access to it, which I was very excited about. So today we are talking about the latest VR film, that being Mobile Suit Gundam Silver Phantom. But before I dive into my thoughts on this, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below, and if you are one of the few people who own a MetaQuest headset and are also a Gundam fan and thus have given this thing a try, let me know what you think of it. If you haven't gotten to give it a try, let me know if you do plan to play it, watch it, whatever, in the future. And whilst you are here, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. So like I said, I really wasn't sure whether I'd ever get to play this because a lot of people will not. It is limited to a specific VR headset, which most people in the first place don't really own VR headsets. Not a lot of people are also Gundam fans, so it is such a small target audience here. People that love Gundam and people that have a VR headset. Those are two things that I wouldn't necessarily say don't fit together, but it's like really limiting your audience. So I don't know how successful this thing's gonna be. I'm hoping that maybe in the future they make the actual story somehow available. Now you could probably go watch it on YouTube because someone will have recorded like a gameplay thing of it, but generally most people aren't going to get to experience this firsthand, which is why I'm here to provide you guys with my thoughts on it. And much like most others, I have been wary on this thing from the get-go. The whole idea of doing a VR film, like I said, it's such a small minority of people that would ever touch this thing. But also from the trailers, I wouldn't say it looked overly great. Having now experienced this thing firsthand though, I genuinely really liked it. I'm saying that purely because you kind of just need to experience it. You can watch the trailers, and from the trailers it doesn't look overly great, but when you put on that headset, when you get into the cockpit of a Gundam, that is just a feeling that, as a Gundam fan, is incredible. Like, it's truly one of those next level feelings, and even though there are flaws with this thing, even though like the way it performs and that, it's not the most amazing thing ever. Some of the interactive elements definitely need a lot of work in most cases, but at the core of it, this thing is like £14, and in my opinion it's worth it just to have that first experience of getting into the cockpit of a Gundam, holding the controls, doing the first launch, all that kind of stuff. It's such an exciting experience that us as Gundam fans, we see it happening and it's always awesome, but being there in the cockpit and kind of seeing all this stuff happening in real time is such an incredible experience that is almost indescribable. You have to see it to believe it. And I'm not going to lie, this is such a great way of telling a story, making a VR film where essentially you're just like watching it, you know, you're not really interacting with it. There are interactive elements, but generally you are just like seeing this thing unfold. You can look around as well, so you can see a lot of things in the spaces, but I think what I love about it most is that it's more engaging because you don't have these outside distractions. If you're watching something on a TV, you can mess about with your phone or you can look at other things around the room. With this, you are in it, and you can't go and look at other things unless you want to bring up another app on your MetaQuest, but most people aren't going to do that, so you really get invested in the story. And not to say that the story is truly incredible, because it's not. There's things that I like about it, but there's also things that I don't. But I've just felt really invested in it because I was like physically there, or as close to physically there as possible. And if this had a truly amazing story, or if you've just created like a VR film that does have a truly amazing story, I think it could be a really great way of experiencing storytelling in the most engaging way possible. We always talk about the cinematic experience being incredibly immersive, but this is like a next level thing where it is truly immersive. You are there with the characters. Speaking of characters, there are some that I like in this. There are some that I really dislike. Babia, for example, I think her whole arc is weird. The way that she interacts with characters, the way that she's always calling back to things. When it comes to like you, the protagonist, I'm glad that they gave him a voice. I'm glad that they gave him, you know, like a plot, a story arc. It's a little bit generic, I will say, the typical new type of thing where it worked for some characters, like Amuro Ray, for example, but I don't know whether it necessarily worked fully for this character. My favorite thing about the story, though, is the way that it like heavily ties in and connects to certain other Universal Century stories. This is heavily, and I mean heavily, tied to Char's counterattack, specifically with the end of that film, which I personally haven't seen, but I kind of know what happens in the end, and this practically tells you that. So for those that are thinking of watching this or doing whatever with it, I would recommend you watch Char's Counterattack first of all. That's probably the most important thing to watch. But also, it does tie into Unicorn pretty directly, which does make sense because this does take place within the same year. But I don't think you need to see Unicorn to understand things in this. Char's Counterattack, though, definitely watch that. It is kind of necessary to understand this film and understand certain parts of characters' backstories. And the way it does tie into all of that, I think is really great. Definitely feels like a part of the Universal Century whole story, if you will. And I like that. I feel like as a Gundam fan, you're going to get those Easter eggs, but you're also going to get like meaningful ties to certain events. Aside from some characters and character decisions, my biggest problem with the story is just how it wraps up. It just kind of ends. And there's certain questions that I had that weren't answered, and they don't feel like they're unanswered for the sake of creating like an ending where you think about it. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like we needed a definitive answer to this certain thing, and we didn't get it. So it kind of feels inconclusive and incomplete as a story. Other than that, though, it's a solid story. It's not the most amazing thing ever, but as like a first foray into doing Gundam VR films, or any VR films for that matter, I thought it was a pretty solid attempt in that regard. Silver Phantom isn't just its story mode though, and I do want to talk about some of those other kind of mini-game things that are incorporated into here. First off, you have the mixed reality battle mode, which is essentially where you grab hold of what is essentially a Gunpla kit really, and you got all these other mobile suits flying through the walls, and you're just holding the thing as it shoots around. Now that sounds incredibly boring when I describe it like that, but when you're actually playing it yourself, it's actually kind of fun. And the other mode is the mixed reality gallery mode, which I think a lot of people are really, really going to love. This is essentially where you get to look around a Gundam within the hangar, and it is almost life-size in comparison to how you are, so you can be stood like on the floor of the hangar. You can only kind of go to certain points, you kind of grapple up in areas, you can't properly like move around it 360 or anything like that, but you do get like a good view from certain angles. But it is life-size, so you're kind of looking down from the floor and you're seeing the RX-78-2, the Zaku-2, the Sazabi, the new Gundam, all of these different Universal Century suits, kind of like when you go to Japan and you see the life-size models, the life-size statues, should I say, of the different Gundams. That's essentially what this is, or it's as close to most people will get that don't actually live in Japan, and it's a really cool experience. Again, you essentially just get to look around these things. You don't really get to interact with them all that much. It would have been nice if you could get into the cockpit, maybe fly out in them, but that's like a whole another thing to create. I thought it was really cool. I think a lot of people are going to get some real excitement out of it. And just overall, if you're a Gundam fan, I think you're actually going to get like a good bit out of this. Would I recommend you go out and get yourself a Mecha Quest to play this specific thing? Absolutely not. Going out and buying one just purely to play like a £14 little Gundam thing that ultimately is going to take you like a few hours to complete the whole thing, it is not worth it in that regard. But if you do have a Mecha Quest 3 specifically, I would recommend you get this thing. £14 in my opinion is worth it, just purely for the experience of launching in the cockpit of a Gundam. That is one of those experiences that it's indescribable. Like I said, you guys need to see it to believe it yourself, because it is awesome. So with all that in mind, I'm going to give Mobile Suit Gundam Silver Phantom a B. But those were my thoughts on Gundam Silver Phantom. Before I get out of here, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know if you have played this or watched it, whatever. Let me know what you did think of it. And also, let me know if you'd like to see any more videos relating to Silver Phantom in the future. I'm thinking maybe a character tier list and also a mobile suit tier list. So if you guys would like to see those, then let me know. Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.